The thing about pain is that it doesn't announce itself. It arrives unannounced, settles into your bones, makes a home in the spaces between your ribs. I learned this at 14, then again at 15, and by 17, I'd stopped counting the lessons. My name is Talia Greene, and I suppose this story starts the night everything collapsed. Though if I'm being honest, things had been crumbling for years. I just hadn't noticed the cracks spreading across the foundation. John Greene, my adoptive father, wasn't always terrible. I remember being 7, maybe 8, watching him build a bookshelf in what would become my bedroom. He'd measured everything twice, cut the wood with precision, sanded the edges smooth so I wouldn't get splinters. He'd smiled at me that day, asked what color I wanted to paint it. I chose yellow. Sunshine yellow. The bookshelf is still in my room, though the paint has faded to something closer to old newspaper. I haven't added a book to it in 3 years. Things changed when I was 14. Or maybe they were always this way, and I was just too young to see clearly. His drinking went from occasional to constant. His hands, which had built that bookshelf with such care, became unpredictable. His words turned sharp, cutting deeper than any blade. By 17, I'd learned to read the signs. The way he'd stand in the kitchen, shoulders tense. The particular silence that filled our house before the storm broke. I'd learned to make myself small, to disappear into the corners of rooms, to become a ghost in my own home. But that August night, 3 weeks before senior year started, I hadn't been careful enough. I don't remember what triggered it. Maybe I'd left a dish in the sink. Maybe I'd walked too loudly across the living room floor. Maybe he didn't need a reason anymore. The details blur together, a watercolor painting left in the rain. What I remember clearly, the sound of his voice rising, the smell of whiskey, the way the wall felt against my back when he shoved me, the ringing in my ears afterward, like someone had struck a bell inside my skull. And I remember leaving. I grabbed my jacket, my phone, whatever cash I could find in my drawer. I didn't have a plan. I just needed to be anywhere else, needed air that didn't taste like anger and alcohol, needed space where I could breathe without fear coating my lungs. I ended up at a bar on the east side of town, the kind that doesn't check IDs too carefully if you look desperate enough. I must have looked desperate enough. The bartender poured me whiskey without asking questions. I drank it fast, felt the burn track down my throat, welcomed the way it dulled the edges of everything. I ordered another. That's when I noticed her. She sat 3 stools down, nursing what looked like gin. Dark hair pulled back, eyes that seemed to contain entire universes, the kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying too much for too long. She looked like someone who understood what it meant to hurt. I didn't approach her. She approached me. Rough night. Her voice was low, careful, like she was offering something fragile. I laughed, a bitter sound that didn't belong to me. You could say that. She moved to the stool beside mine, and I noticed details then. The silver ring on her right hand, the small scar above her eyebrow, the way her fingers traced patterns on the bar's worn surface. She looked maybe late 20s, early 30s. Old enough to know better than to talk to drunk teenagers in dive bars. But she did anyway. We talked for hours. I don't remember everything we discussed. The alcohol saw to that, but I remember the feeling. Like someone had cracked open a window in a suffocating room. Like I could say anything, and she would listen without judgment, without trying to fix me. I told her about feeling trapped. About wanting to escape but not knowing where to go. I didn't mention John directly, but I think she understood anyway. Some wounds are visible even when they're hidden beneath skin and silence. She told me about feeling lost herself. About spending years trying to be what everyone expected, only to wake up one day and realize she didn't recognize her own reflection. About the courage it takes to start over. At some point, she placed her hand over mine. The touch was gentle, grounding. I looked at our hands together on the bar and felt something shift inside my chest. Not quite hope, but maybe its distant cousin. Whatever you're running from, she said, it doesn't get to define you. You get to define you. I wanted to believe her. When the bartender announced last call, we stepped outside into humid summer darkness. The street was empty, quiet except for distant traffic. She turned to me, and I saw concern written across her features. Will you be okay? Getting home? I nodded, though we both knew it was a lie. She hesitated, then pulled out her phone. Give me your number. Just, in case you need someone to talk to. I recited the digits, watched her save them under T. She didn't offer her name, and I didn't ask. It felt right somehow, this strange anonymity. This pocket of time existing outside normal rules. Before she left, she hugged me. Not the quick, awkward embrace of strangers, but something real. Something that said, I see you. I see your pain. You're not alone. I held on maybe too long. When I finally let go, she walked to her car, a sensible sedan parked under a broken streetlight. I watched her drive away, taillights disappearing into the night. I went home, crept through the front door, found John passed out on the couch, television flickering blue light across his face. I walked past him like a whisper, locked myself in my room, curled up on my bed, still wearing my jacket. I didn't cry. I'd learned years ago that tears changed nothing. Instead, I stared at my phone, at the number I'd given to a stranger, and wondered if she would actually call. She didn't. But I would see her again. 3 weeks later, I walked into advanced biology on the first day of senior year, and there she was, standing at the front of the classroom, writing Ms. Olivia Reed on the whiteboard. My stranger from the bar. My temporary salvation. My new teacher. I froze in the doorway. My brain stuttered, trying to reconcile the two versions. The woman who'd held my hand in a dive bar, and the professional standing before me in pressed slacks and a button-down shirt. She turned, saw me, and I watched recognition flash across her face, quickly suppressed, replaced by careful neutrality. Find a seat, she said to the class at large. I chose the back corner. Tried to make myself invisible. The period dragged on forever and ended too quickly. She talked about course expectations, lab safety, the fascinating complexity of cellular structures. I heard none of it. I just kept replaying that night, her hand on mine, her voice saying I didn't have to be defined by what I was running from. When the bell rang, I gathered my things quickly, tried to leave before. Talia, can you stay for a moment? The classroom emptied. The door closed. We stood on opposite sides of the room like opponents sizing each other up before a fight. I didn't know, she said finally. That night, I had no idea you were. I wouldn't have. Talk to me. I finished. Listened? Made me feel human for the first time in months. She flinched. You're a student. I wasn't that night. But you are now. Her voice was firm, but I heard the strain underneath. What happened was, it was a mistake. The word landed like a slap. Mistake. As if that connection, that brief moment of understanding, was something to regret. Right, I said, shouldering my backpack. Got it. Pretend we never met. Pretend I'm just another student you've never shared drinks with. Shouldn't be too hard. I headed for the door. Talia. See you tomorrow, Ms. Reed. I didn't look back. September bled into October, and we maintained a careful distance. She called on me no more or less than other students. I completed assignments, participated minimally, kept my head down. We were strangers again, except we weren't, and the pretense exhausted me. But I couldn't stop noticing things. The way she'd pause sometimes while lecturing, like she'd lost her train of thought. How she'd glance toward my desk, then quickly look away. The shadows under her eyes that suggested sleepless nights. I wasn't the only one struggling with this. Home life deteriorated further. John's drinking intensified. His anger became a living thing, coiled and waiting. I spent most evenings in my room, door locked, headphones on, trying to drown out the sounds of him stumbling through the house. Some nights he'd bang on my door, demanding I come out. I'd ignore him until he gave up, until I heard his footsteps retreat, until the house fell silent again. Other nights, I wasn't fast enough, wasn't quiet enough, made the mistake of being visible. Those nights left marks, some visible, most not. I wore long sleeves even when October turned warm, kept my head down in the hallways, spoke to no one. I was a ghost haunting my own existence. In biology, I felt Ms. Reed watching me. Not obviously, but I could sense her attention, feel the weight of her concern. She didn't say anything, though. Neither did I. Until the day I showed up with a split lip and a bruise darkening my jaw. I'd covered it with makeup as best I could, but foundation can only hide so much. I walked into class, took my usual seat, avoided everyone's eyes. Ms. Reed's lecture faltered mid-sentence when she saw me. She recovered quickly, continued talking about mitochondria, but I felt her gaze returning to me throughout the period. When class ended, I knew what was coming. "Talia, please stay behind." The room emptied. I remained seated, staring at my notebook. She closed the door. Approached slowly, like I might bolt. "What happened?" Walked into a door. "Talia. Cabinet, actually. Forgot it was open." "Stupid, really." She pulled a chair over, sat facing me. "I'm not an idiot, and neither are you. Please don't insult either of us with lies." I looked up finally, met her eyes. Saw genuine worry there, and something else, recognition. The kind that comes from experience. "What do you want me to say?" My voice came out rough. "That my father did this? That he does worse? That I go home every night wondering if this is the night things escalate past the point of survival." She inhaled sharply. "Talia, you wanted the truth. There it is." I stood, grabbed my bag. "Now you know. So what? You going to report it? Send me into the foster system? Because I've heard the stories, Ms. Reed. Sometimes the unknown is worse than the devil you know. I can help you." I laughed, that same bitter sound from the bar. "How? You said what happened between us was a mistake. You've spent 2 months pretending I don't exist outside of being another name in your gray book. Now you want to help. That's not fair." "Fair?" I stepped closer. "You know what's not fair? Meeting someone who made me feel seen, who made me feel like maybe I could survive this, then having them shove me away the next time we cross paths. You know what's not fair? Being stuck in a house with someone who's supposed to love me, but treats me like I'm an inconvenience at best, a punching bag at worst. Don't talk to me about fair." The silence stretched between us, taut as a wire. "You're right," she said quietly. "I haven't been fair to you. I've been scared." "Of what?" "Of caring about you in a way that crosses every professional boundary I have. Of wanting to protect you and knowing that wanting that is itself a problem. Of the fact that I think about you constantly, worry about you, and have no idea how to navigate that without destroying my career and possibly making things worse for you." The honesty in her voice caught me off guard. I sank back into the chair. "I'm scared too," I admitted. "All the time. I'm scared he'll go too far one night. I'm scared of ending up like him. I'm scared that this," I gestured vaguely, "is all there is. That I'll be trapped forever, that nothing will ever change, that I'll wake up at 40 and realize I never really lived." She reached out slowly, gave me time to pull away. When I didn't, her fingers brushed against my uninjured cheek. "You won't be trapped forever. This isn't your whole story, Talia. It's just one chapter, and you get to write the rest. I want to believe that. Then believe it. Or at least believe that I believe it." She withdrew her hand. "And let me help. Really help. There are resources, people who can intervene safely." "No." I shook my head. I've got 8 months until graduation. 8 months until I can leave and never look back. I just need to survive until then. 8 months is a long time when you're living in danger. I've survived 17 years. What's 8 more months? She looked like she wanted to argue, but something in my expression must have stopped her. Okay, she said finally. But promise me something. If things get worse, if you feel unsafe, if you need an escape route, you call me. Anytime, day or night. Promise me. Ms. Reed. Olivia. Outside of school, outside of this classroom, call me Olivia. And promise me. I held her gaze, saw the determination there, the genuine care that terrified us both. I promise. We settled into an uneasy equilibrium. In class, we maintained appropriate boundaries, teacher and student, nothing more. But after school, in the privacy of her classroom or her car parked in empty lots, we talked. She told me about growing up in a small town where being different meant being invisible. About spending her 20s trying to fit into spaces that weren't meant for her. About the relationships that failed because she'd been trying to be someone she wasn't. I told her about the foster homes before John. About being shuffled from place to place, never quite belonging anywhere. About how adoption was supposed to be the happy ending, except real life doesn't work like storybooks. We talked about everything and nothing. Books we'd read, places we wanted to travel, the strange beauty of autumn in New England. She introduced me to authors I'd never heard of, poets who understood that language could be both weapon and bomb. I introduced her to music she'd overlooked, showed her how sometimes 3 minutes of melody could say more than hours of conversation. Slowly, the walls we'd built started crumbling. I didn't mean to fall for her. She didn't mean to fall for me. But intention has little to do with how hearts work. It started small. The way she'd smile when I got excited explaining something. How I'd catch myself looking forward to biology more than any other class. The text messages that began as check-ins and evolved into actual conversations. How are you holding up? Still breathing. You? Same. Still breathing counts as winning some days. Most days. Most days. November arrived with early snow and shorter daylight. John's drinking worsened as the holidays approached. I spent more time out of the house, more time sitting in Olivia's classroom long after the school had emptied. One evening, I was working on calculus homework at a desk while she graded papers. The overhead lights hummed. Snow fell past the windows. "Can I ask you something?" I said, not looking up from my equations. "Always." "Why teaching? With everything you've told me about wanting to escape, to reinvent yourself, why come back to a small town, work in a high school?" She set down her pen. "Because I wanted to be for others what no one was for me. When I was your age, I felt invisible. I needed someone to tell me that different wasn't wrong, that the person I was becoming was worth becoming. No one did." She paused. I didn't want anyone else to feel that alone. I finally looked at her. "You succeeded. With me anyway." Something shifted in her expression. "Talia, I know. We can't. I know all the reasons why this is complicated and problematic and potentially disastrous. I know you could lose your job. I know I'm 17 and you're 31 and that gap matters." I set down my pencil. "I know all of that. But I also know that when I'm with you, I feel safer than I've ever felt. That you see me in ways no one else does. That maybe this, whatever this is, it matters more than the complications." She stood, walked to the window, watched snow accumulate on the sill. "You're not wrong," she said quietly. "It does matter. You matter. And that's precisely why we can't." Can't what? Acknowledge what's happening? Pretend we're not constantly thinking about each other. She turned. "You're 17. I'll be 18 in 4 months. You're my student. I'll graduate in 8 months. Talia." She crossed back, knelt beside my desk so we were eye level. Even if we ignore every ethical concern, every professional boundary, every practical obstacle, what kind of future could we have? You're about to start your life. You should be free to explore, to make mistakes, to discover who you are without being tied to someone who's already figured themselves out. Maybe I don't want freedom. Maybe I want this. You say that now. But you're 17. Stop using my age as a shield. Yes, I'm 17. I'm also old enough to know what I want. Old enough to recognize genuine connection when I feel it. Old enough to understand that what we have doesn't come along often. And I'm old enough to know that age gaps matter. That power dynamics matter. That I'm in a position of authority over you, and acting on these feelings would be an abuse of that power. I leaned back, frustrated. So what? We just wait? Ignore this for 8 months until I graduate. Hope the feelings don't disappear. I don't know. Her voice cracked slightly. I don't have answers, Talia. I just know that I care about you too much to risk harming you. Even if not having you harms me. The silence that followed felt heavy, weighted with everything we couldn't say, everything we wanted but couldn't reach for. Finally, I packed up my homework. I should go. She didn't try to stop me. We pulled back after that conversation. Not completely, I still came to her classroom sometimes, still texted when things at home got bad. But we maintained distance, kept things surface level. It hurt. Like trying to breathe with only half your lungs working. December brought finals and forced holiday cheer. John hosted a party for his work colleagues, made me play the dutiful daughter, smile and serve drinks and pretend we were a normal, functional family. I survived it by disappearing into the bathroom every 30 minutes, sitting on the closed toilet lid, scrolling through old texts from Olivia. You're stronger than you think. Surviving isn't the same as living, but it's enough for now. One day this will be a memory instead of your present. Hold on to that. When the party finally ended, when the guests left and John retreated to his bedroom, I stood in the kitchen surrounded by empty bottles and discarded paper plates. The house reeked of alcohol and artificial cheer. I cleaned mechanically. Threw away trash, loaded the dishwasher, wiped down counters. Tried not to think about how this was my life, how I'd willingly numbed myself to survive an evening, how I was becoming exactly what I feared. My phone buzzed. Thinking about you. Hope you're okay. Olivia. Always somehow knowing when I needed her most. Survived another performance. Oscar-worthy, really. I'm sorry. Not your fault. Still sorry. Want company? I'm up, grading papers, slowly losing my mind to essays about cellular respiration. I hesitated. We'd been maintaining distance. Letting her in now felt dangerous. But I was so tired of being safe. Actually, yes. Where? You remember that overlook by Miller's Pond? Meet me there in 20? Okay. I left the house quietly, drove through empty streets slick with ice. Found her car already parked at the overlook, engine running for heat, headlights illuminating falling snow. I climbed into her passenger seat, and she just looked at me for a long moment. Hi, she said. Hi. Bad night? Just long. Exhausting. The usual. She reached over, took my hand. Tell me what you need. What I needed was impossible. What I needed was to rewind time, to be born into a different family, to meet her under different circumstances. What I needed was for the world to rearrange itself so we could have this without consequences. But I couldn't say that. So instead, just be here. With me. That's enough. She squeezed my hand. I can do that. We sat in comfortable silence, watching snow blanket the world. The pond below us was starting to freeze, ice creeping in from the edges. Soon it would be solid, something you could walk across without fear of breaking through. I envied its certainty. Can I tell you something? She said eventually. Always. I think about you constantly. What you're dealing with, whether you're safe, if you've eaten, if you're sleeping. I think about how unfair it is that someone as brilliant and resilient as you has to fight just to survive. I think about. She paused. I think about what it would be like if circumstances were different. If we'd met some other way in some other life. Yeah. And I hate it because thinking about it changes nothing. You're still my student. I'm still your teacher. The world doesn't rearrange itself just because we want it to. I turned to face her. Snow collected on the windshield, cocooning us in our own small world. What if we didn't wait for the world to change? What if we just took what we wanted, consequences be damned? Talia, I'm not saying we announce it. I'm not saying we do anything that puts you at risk. I'm just saying, maybe we stop pretending we're not completely gone for each other. Maybe we allow ourselves this, even if it's secret, even if it's complicated. That's not fair to you. Sneaking around, hiding. What's not fair is feeling this connection and denying it because of arbitrary rules. What's not fair is finding someone who makes me feel like I might actually survive this, then having to keep them at arm's length. I reached up, touched her face. I'm not asking for forever. I'm not asking for guarantees. I'm just asking for now. For whatever this can be, even if it's messy. She closed her eyes, leaned into my touch. If we do this, she said slowly, we have to be careful. Extraordinarily careful. No one can know. Not until you graduate, not until the power dynamic shifts. It's the only way to protect both of us. I understand. And if at any point it becomes too much, if you decide you want out, if you meet someone your own age, I won't. But if you do, you tell me. No guilt, no shame. Just honesty. Okay. She opened her eyes. This is probably the worst decision I've ever made. Probably, I agreed. Then she kissed me. Soft at first, tentative, like she was still fighting herself. But when I kissed her back, when I poured everything I'd been holding onto into that moment, her resolve crumbled. Her hand tangled in my hair. Mine gripped her jacket. We kissed like people who'd been starving, like we were trying to consume each other, like nothing else existed beyond this car, this moment, this stolen piece of time. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she rested her forehead against mine. We're definitely going to hell for this. I laughed, a real laugh this time, not bitter at all. Worth it. Winter deepened, and we learned the art of secrecy. At school, nothing changed. She was Ms. Reed, I was Talia Greene. We maintained professional distance, spoke only when necessary, never let our eyes linger too long. But after hours, we found each other. In her car parked at the Overlook. In her apartment across town where no one knew her. In stolen moments that felt both infinite and impossibly brief. She taught me things I'd never learned. Not just biology, though I was acing her class now, but how to exist in my own skin. How to recognize my own worth. How to imagine a future beyond survival. I taught her things too. How to let go of control sometimes. How to be spontaneous. How to laugh without calculation. We balanced on a knife's edge, hyper-aware of the risks. One slip-up, one person seeing us together in the wrong context, and everything would shatter. The fear was exhausting. But so was the alternative. Home life remained terrible. John's anger intensified as winter wore on. Bad days became worse days. I got better at reading the signs, at knowing when to leave, where to hide. Olivia gave me a key to her apartment. For emergencies, she said. If things get bad, if you need sanctuary, come here. Anytime. I kept the key on a chain around my neck, hidden under my shirt. A talisman. A promise. I used it twice in January. The first time, John came home in a rage about something work-related. I heard him downstairs, throwing things, shouting at no one. I grabbed my backpack, climbed out my bedroom window, something I'd gotten practiced at, and drove straight to Olivia's. She was already in bed when I arrived, but she didn't hesitate. Just pulled me inside, held me until the shaking stopped, made me tea, wrapped me in blankets. We didn't talk about John. Didn't need to. She just stayed close, present, solid. I fell asleep on her couch. Woke to sunlight and the smell of breakfast. She'd called me in sick to school, called herself in sick too. Let's just have today, she said when I protested. One day where neither of us has to perform. So we stayed in. Watched old films. Read passages from books to each other. Existed in a bubble where the outside world didn't intrude. It was the closest I'd ever come to feeling home. The second time I used the key was worse. John had been drinking since noon. I tried to stay out of his way, but there's only so small you can make yourself in a 2-bedroom house. He found me in the kitchen, accused me of something I hadn't done, probably didn't even believe I'd done. It didn't matter. He needed an outlet. His hand caught my shoulder, spun me around. I saw his fist coming, tried to dodge. Didn't quite make it. Pain exploded across my cheekbone. My vision widened out. I tasted copper. I don't remember grabbing my keys, don't remember getting to my car. But suddenly I was driving, tears streaming, blood dripping onto my shirt. Olivia's apartment. I needed Olivia. She opened her door, saw my face, and went pale. Oh God. Talia. I'm okay. I'm fine. You're bleeding. Come here. She pulled me inside, guided me to the bathroom, made me sit on the edge of the tub while she got supplies. Her hands shook as she cleaned the wound, applied butterfly bandages. This is bad, she said quietly. This is really bad. We need to report this. Get you somewhere safe. No. Talia, he could have killed you. But he didn't. And I only have 5 more months. 5 months and I'm free. If we report it now, they'll put me in foster care, or worse, send me back with supervision, and everything will be 10 times harder. Please. I just need to survive 5 more months. She looked at me with such anguish. I can't watch you go through this. I can't sit by while he hurts you. You're not sitting by. You're here. You're helping me survive. That's everything. She finished bandaging my face, then pulled me into her arms. I felt her heart racing against mine, felt the wetness of her tears in my hair. Stay tonight, she whispered. Please. Let me know you're safe for at least 1 night. Okay. I called John's phone, left a message saying I was staying at a friend's. Knowing he probably wouldn't even listen to it, wouldn't care as long as I wasn't underfoot. That night, Olivia held me in her bed. Not sexually, we hadn't crossed that line yet, weren't sure we should, but intimately. Her arms around me, her breath steady against my neck, her presence anchoring me to earth. I love you, she said into the darkness. 3 words. Simple. Devastating. I love you too, I answered. And meant it more than I'd ever meant anything. February brought fall spring, days warm enough to fool the crocuses into blooming early. Olivia and I settled into rhythms. School days maintaining distance. Evenings at her place when I could escape. Weekends stolen in bits and pieces. She helped me apply for colleges. Filled out financial aid forms. Wrote me a recommendation letter that made me cry because I'd never seen myself through her eyes before. Talia Greene possesses an uncommon resilience and intellectual curiosity. She approaches challenges with grace and determination, never allowing obstacles to define her limitations. I got accepted to 3 schools, 2 with substantial scholarships. The future, which had always seemed like a distant fiction, suddenly became tangible. You're getting out, Olivia said when the last acceptance letter arrived. You're really getting out. We're getting out, I corrected. Because that was the plan we'd built in whispered conversations late at night. I'd go to college an hour away, close enough to visit, far enough to establish independence. After graduation, after I turned 18, After the professional boundaries no longer applied, we'd figure out what this could be without hiding. One semester, she'd say. Just survive one more semester. I wanted to believe it was possible. Things started unraveling in March. Another student, Emma, from my calculus class, approached me at lunch. Hey, random question. You've been spending a lot of time with Ms. Reed after school. Is she like tutoring you or something? My stomach dropped. Sometimes. Biology stuff. Why? No reason. Just noticed, I guess. You two seem close. She's a good teacher. Explains things well. Emma nodded, but something in her expression suggested she wasn't quite convinced. I texted Olivia immediately. We need to be more careful. People are noticing. Her response came during her lunch period. Meet me after school. We'll talk. That afternoon, in her empty classroom, we stood on opposite sides of her desk like the first day all over again. Maybe we should cool things off, she said. Just until graduation. 2 more months. 2 months of pretending we don't exist to each other. 2 months of being smart. Protecting what we have by being patient. I wanted to argue. Wanted to say that hiding had already cost us too much. But I saw the fear in her eyes, recognized my own terror reflected back. Okay, I agreed. 2 months. We can do 2 months. Except it turned out we couldn't. Because the next week, John found my phone. I'd forgotten to delete our text thread. Hundreds of messages, increasingly intimate, impossible to misinterpret. I came home from school to find him in the living room, my phone in his hand, his expression cold in a way that frightened me more than his usual rage. Who, he said slowly, is Olivia? My mind raced. Lie? Deflect? Run? A friend. A friend. He scrolled through messages. I love you. Can't wait to see you again. You make everything bearable. Some friend. It's not. Don't. His voice was ice. Don't lie to me. This is your teacher, isn't it? The biology woman. Reed. Silence seemed safer than words. He stood, and I instinctively stepped back. Do you have any idea what you've done? What kind of position you've put her in? She could lose her job. Could face criminal charges. Nothing illegal happened. I'm almost 18. You're a minor. She's an authority figure. It doesn't matter that nothing illegal happened. He air-quoted mockingly. The optics alone would destroy her. For the first time in years, I saw something besides anger in his expression. Something calculating. Here's what's going to happen, he said. You're going to end this. Completely. No more texts, no more meetings, nothing. And you're going to stay away from her until graduation. Or what? Or I report her. To the school board, to the police, to anyone who'll listen. I'll make sure everyone knows that she seduced a vulnerable student. That she took advantage of you. That's not what happened. Doesn't matter what really happened. Matters what people will believe. And they'll believe a concerned parent over a teacher who crossed lines. I felt my world tilting. You'd ruin her life just to control mine? I'd protect my daughter from a predator. His words were silk over steel. That's how I'd frame it anyway. She's not a predator. She's the only person who's ever actually cared about me. Then for her sake, you'll end this. Because I promise you, Talia, if you don't, I'll make sure she pays for every moment she spent with you. He handed me back my phone, messages still open, evidence of everything we'd tried to hide. You have until tomorrow to figure out how to break things off. Make it clean. Make it permanent. Or I start making phone calls. He left the room. I stood frozen, phone burning in my hand, future collapsing around me. I had to end it. Had to protect her. Even if it killed me. I went to her apartment that night without calling first. Used my key, found her in the kitchen making dinner. She smiled when she saw me, then immediately frowned. What's wrong? I handed her my phone, let her read the texts, watched understanding dawn. Your father. He'll report you. Ruin everything you've built. Unless I end this. She set down the phone. Talia. He means it. I know him. He'll burn your life down just to prove he can. Then let him. I don't care. I care. My voice cracked. I care that you'd lose your job, your reputation, possibly face charges. I care that trying to love me might cost you everything. You're worth everything. No. I shook my head. I'm not. I'm a mess. I'm broken. I'm the reason you're in this position. Stop. She crossed to me, took my face in her hands. You listen to me. You are not broken. You are surviving impossible circumstances with more strength than most people possess. And loving you, because I do love you completely, has been the most real thing I've experienced in years. It doesn't matter how real it is if it destroys you. So what? You just leave? We pretend none of this meant anything. For 2 months. Just until graduation, until I'm 18, until the power dynamic shifts. Then he is nothing. Can't threaten you with ethics violations. Can't claim you took advantage. We just have to wait. 2 months. She dropped her hands. 2 months of you going back to that house, dealing with him alone, while I sit by and do nothing. It's not nothing. It's protecting yourself. That matters. She turned away, gripped the counter. I hate this. I hate that he gets to control both our lives. I hate that doing the right thing means losing you. You're not losing me. This is just strategic retreat. We regroup, we wait, we come back stronger when the conditions are better. She laughed bitterly. You sound like a military commander. Learned from you. All those talks about surviving, about thinking long-term. This is long-term thinking. She turned back to me, and I saw tears tracking down her cheeks. Promise me you'll be safe. That if things escalate, you'll run, you'll call someone, you'll do whatever you need to survive. I promise. And promise me that in 2 months, when all the obstacles are gone, you'll still want this. That I haven't ruined you for normal relationships, that you won't wake up and realize you deserve better than someone who couldn't protect you. I crossed to her, kissed her with everything I had. Let my actions speak what words couldn't capture. When we separated, I pressed my forehead to hers. 2 months. Then we figure out forever. 2 months, she echoed. I left her apartment knowing it might be the last time for a while. Drove home with tears blurring the road. Climbed back through my bedroom window like a thief stealing back into her own life. April passed in gray monotony. I avoided Olivia at school beyond basic classroom necessities. Deleted her number from my phone, not from my memory, never from that, but from where John might find it. I went home each day, did my homework, stayed invisible. John watched me like a guard monitoring a prisoner, checking for signs of rebellion. Some nights I stood outside her apartment building, just watching the lights in her window. Never going up. Never using the key still hanging around my neck. Just standing there like a ghost haunting the place I most wanted to be. I wondered if she saw me. Wondered if she stood at her window looking down, recognizing my car in the darkness. Probably not. She was probably moving on, forgetting, realizing she'd dodged a bullet. Except, 3 weeks into our separation, I found a note in my locker. Not in her handwriting, she was too smart for that. But the words were hers. Still here. Still waiting. Still believing in 2 months. I kept the note folded in my pocket, touched it sometimes when I needed proof that I hadn't imagined everything. May arrived with actual spring, trees blooming, birds returning, the world oblivious to how it had ended for me. Graduation loomed 3 weeks away. College orientation packets arrived in the mail. My future insisted on existing despite my inability to imagine it. John's anger had evolved. Less explosive now, more controlled. He'd won after all. Separated me from the one person who made me want to survive. Why waste energy on dramatics? But winning wasn't enough for him anymore. He needed me to acknowledge his victory. One night at dinner, a forced ritual he'd instituted to maintain appearances of normalcy, he asked about my plans. Got everything figured out for school? Dorm assignment? Class registration? Yes. Good. Fresh start for you. Leave all this teenage rebellion behind. Grow up. I didn't respond. Let him interpret my silence however he wanted. You know I did this for your own good, right? Protecting you from that woman, from making a mistake that would follow you forever. Still silent. Talia. I'm talking to you. I looked up finally. Met his eyes. You didn't protect me from anything. You used me as a weapon against the one person who actually cared. His jaw tightened. Watch yourself. Or what? You'll hit me? Hasn't stopped you before. You'll destroy what little relationship we have left? Already done. You've won, John. Congratulations. You successfully made me hate coming home, hate you, hate what my life has become. Gold star for parenting. He stood so fast his chair toppled backward. I flinched, couldn't help it, but didn't look away. Everything I've done has been because you're too young to understand consequences. Because left to your own devices, you make stupid choices. Sneaking around with your teacher? Pathetic. Thinking that was love? Delusional. It was more real than anything in this house. It was a fantasy. She was using you, whether you're willing to see it or not. No. I stood too, matched his energy. She saw me, knew me, made me feel like I might actually survive long enough to escape this prison you call a home. The only person using anyone here is you. Using me to make yourself feel powerful, using fear to control, using your fists when words aren't enough. Get out of my sight. Gladly. I grabbed my keys, headed for the door. Where do you think you're going? Anywhere but here. You walk out that door, don't bother coming back. I paused, hand on the doorknob. Turned. Is that a promise? His expression darkened. I'm serious. You leave now, you're on your own. No more housing, no college money, nothing. I never had college money from you anyway. Financial aid is covering it. So your threats are empty. I pulled open the door. I've got 3 weeks until graduation. I'll crash with friends until then. After that, you'll never have to see me again. Talia. I left. Didn't look back. Drove aimlessly for an hour, processing what I'd done. Burned the bridge. Freed myself. Terrified myself. Finally, I ended up where I always ended up when the world became too much, outside Olivia's building. But this time, I got out of the car. This time, I climbed the stairs. This time, I used the key. She was grading papers at her kitchen table, red pen poised over someone's essay. Looked up when I entered, confusion shifting to concern. Talia? What? I left. Told John the first wasn't coming back. Burned every bridge. I laughed shakily. So I guess I need a place to crash for 3 weeks until dorms open. Know anywhere that might take an astray. She set down her pen slowly. What happened? I told her everything. The dinner, the argument, the ultimatum. Saying it out loud made it real, made it permanent. When I finished, she just looked at me for a long moment. You can stay here, she said finally. But we need to be smart about it. No one can know. It's just 3 weeks. Until graduation. Until graduation, she agreed. And then we figure out what forever looks like. She stood, crossed to me, pulled me into her arms. I let myself collapse into her, let her hold me together while I shook apart. I've got you, she murmured. We're going to make it through this. I wanted to believe her. Those 3 weeks felt both endless and impossibly brief. I slept on Olivia's couch, or that's what we told ourselves. Reality looked more like falling asleep in her bed, tangled together, pretending we were just offering comfort, not crossing lines we'd promised to respect until graduation made it less complicated. We were careful. I left for school early, arrived separately. She never drove me. At school, we maintained complete distance. She called on me no more or less than others. I treated her like any other teacher. But in her apartment, behind locked doors and drawn curtains, we existed in a bubble. Studied together. Cooked meals. Talked about futures that were finally becoming possible to imagine. She showed me pictures of the college I'd be attending. It's beautiful in fall. The campus, all those old brick buildings. You're going to thrive there. Will you visit? Or is that still too complicated? After graduation? After you're 18 and enrolled and no longer my student? I'll visit. We'll figure out how to make this work across an hour's distance. People do it all the time. People who aren't us don't have to navigate all these additional complications. Sure they do. Everyone has complications. Ours are just more specific. She tucked hair behind my ear. But they're not insurmountable. 2.5 weeks until graduation. Then the world opens up. I leaned into her touch. Sometimes I can't believe this is real. That I get to have this, have you? Believe it. You've survived so much worse than happiness. Time to get comfortable with things actually working out. Graduation arrived on a warm evening in late May. I wore my cap and gown, sat among classmates I barely knew, listened to speeches about futures and possibilities, and the whole world waiting. Olivia sat in the faculty section, professional and distant. But when they called my name, when I walked across that stage to receive my diploma, our eyes met for just a second. She smiled. Not the polite teacher smile, but the real one. The one that said we made it. I smiled back, accepting my diploma like it was a key instead of a piece of paper. Because that's what it was, a key to everything we'd been waiting for. After the ceremony, while families swarmed the lawn taking photos, I saw John standing near the back. He didn't approach, didn't congratulate me. Just watched with an expression I couldn't read. I didn't approach him either. Let the distance between us grow and grow until he turned and walked away. Olivia found me later, after most people had cleared out. Congratulations, graduate. Thank you, Ms. Reed. You can probably drop the formality now. Term's over. You're no longer my student. What am I then? She glanced around, making sure we were relatively alone. Mine, if you'll have me. No more hiding, no more waiting. Just us figuring this out together. Yes, I said immediately. Absolutely yes. She laughed, pure joy in the sound. Then let's get out of here. I'm thinking celebration dinner. Maybe that restaurant you mentioned wanting to try. The Italian place? That's the one. My treat. We're celebrating your survival, your graduation, your freedom. All of it. So we left together. Not sneaking, not hiding. Just walking side by side to her car, two people who'd earned their happiness through sheer determination to survive. Summer unfurled slowly. I moved into the dorms early for summer orientation. My room was small, but mine, no one to hide from, no one to fear, just my space to fill however I wanted. Olivia visited twice a week. We'd get dinner, walk around campus, talk about everything and nothing. Sometimes she'd stay over, platonically at first, then less so as we figured out what this relationship looked like without obstacles. This is weird, I said one night, lying in her arms in my narrow dorm bed. Being able to just be together without constantly looking over our shoulders. Good weird or bad weird? Good. Definitely good. Just takes adjusting to. She kissed my temple. We've got time to adjust. No rush, no pressure. But there was pressure even if she didn't acknowledge it. The age gap still existed, still mattered in some people's eyes. When we went out, I sometimes caught looks judgmental, curious, confused. A 31-year-old woman with a barely 18-year-old girl. People made assumptions. Most of the time, I ignored them. But sometimes the stares bothered me more than I wanted to admit. Do you ever regret this? I asked one evening as we sat on a bench overlooking the river. Taking this chance on me? Never. Why? The complications. The judgment. You could be with someone your own age, someone established, someone who doesn't come with all this baggage. She turned to face me. I don't want someone my own age. I don't want established. I want you exactly as you are, baggage and all. Because you're brave and resilient and brilliant, and knowing you has made me better. But the age thing matters less than you think. In 10 years, it won't matter at all. You'll be 28, I'll be 41, and no one will bat an eye. We just have to be patient through the awkward period. I'm not great at patience. I've noticed. She smiled. But you're learning. We both are. Fall semester started. I dove into classes, biology major, because Olivia had shown me how fascinating life sciences could be. Made friends. Joined clubs. Started building a life that didn't revolve around survival. Olivia and I settled into routines. Weekend visits. Long phone calls during the week. Texts throughout the day. How's your chemistry midterm? Brutal but survivable. You? Dealing with freshmen who think mitochondria is a Harry Potter spell. They're not entirely wrong. Powerhouse of the cell sounds pretty magical. Nerd. Takes one to know one. I went home to her apartment for winter break. Home, being her place now, not John's house. I'd stopped thinking of that building as home months ago. We spent the holiday quiet, just the two of us. Cooked an elaborate dinner that turned out mediocre but tasted perfect anyway. Exchanged gifts. She gave me a necklace with coordinates engraved on it. The Overlook, she explained. Where we first decided to stop running from this. I traced the numbers. I love it. I love you. I love you too. So much it terrifies me sometimes. Good terrified or bad terrified? Good. Definitely good. We stayed up late that night, talking about the future. Not the immediate future, we'd figured that out. But the distant one. Where we might end up, what we might build together. I want you to live your life, she said. Study abroad if that interests you. Take opportunities even if they pull you away temporarily. I don't want to be the reason you don't explore. And if I explore and decide I want to come back to you, then I'll be here. Always. Spring brought my birthday. 19 felt simultaneously ancient and impossibly young. Olivia took me to the coast, rented a small cottage for the weekend. We walked beaches, collected shells, existed in that private bubble where only we mattered. On the actual day, we sat on the porch watching sunset paint the water gold and pink. Make a wish, she said. Don't need to. Already got what I wanted. Humor me. I closed my eyes, thought about everything we'd survived to get here. Thought about the girl I'd been 17 months ago, broken, desperate, convinced she'd never escape. I wished for that girl to truly believe she'd made it. Opened my eyes. Done. What did you wish for? Can't tell you. Won't come true. She smiled. Fair enough. Want your actual present? There's more than this weekend? She handed me an envelope. Inside, plane tickets. Summer plans, she explained. That trip to Portland you mentioned wanting to take. 3 weeks, just us, exploring the Pacific Northwest. Olivia, this is too much. It's exactly right. You've spent your entire life putting yourself last, surviving instead of living. Time to actually experience things, make memories that aren't about endurance. I launched myself at her, nearly knocking us both off the porch chairs. Thank you. For this, for everything, for seeing me. Always going to see you. Always going to choose you. Get used to it. 5 years later, I stood in the apartment we shared, a real place this time. Not her old one-bedroom, but a space we'd chosen together. 2 bedrooms, though we only used one. Big windows. Plants everywhere because I'd discovered I liked keeping things alive. I'd finished undergrad, gotten into a master's program. Was considering PhD programs, thinking about research, about teaching. Following paths Olivia had illuminated just by existing. She was in the kitchen, singing off-key while making dinner. Some pasta dish she'd been perfecting. Still wore that silver ring on her right hand, still traced patterns on surfaces when she was thinking. I watched her for a moment, this person who'd saved my life not through grand gestures, but through consistent presence. Through showing up, through believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. She turned, caught me staring. What? Just thinking about how far we've come. How different things are now. Good different. The best different. She set down the spoon, wiped her hands, crossed to me. At 23, I no longer looked like that frightened teenager. At 36, she'd gained laugh lines around her eyes. We'd grown into ourselves, grown into each other. You know what today is? She asked. I pulled her close. 5 years since you showed up at my dorm with takeout and terrible jokes, asking if I wanted to officially try dating someone without sneaking around. And you said yes while simultaneously choking on lo mein. In my defense, I wasn't expecting you to ask while I was mid-bite. She laughed, that same genuine sound. Best worst proposal ever. Proposal seems like a strong word for wanna date exclusively? Well, she pulled back slightly, suddenly nervous in a way she rarely showed. Maybe it's time for an actual proposal. My heart stuttered. What? She reached into her pocket, pulled out a small box. Opened it to reveal a simple band, elegant and understated. Talia Greene. You've changed everything about my existence. Made me braver, softer, more myself than I knew how to be. You've shown me that surviving is just the beginning, that what comes after matters more. I want all of your afters. Every single one. She took a breath. Will you marry me? I couldn't speak. Could barely breathe. 5 years ago, I'd been certain happiness was fiction. Now it stood before me, offering forever. Yes, I managed finally. Obviously, yes. She slid the ring onto my finger, perfect fit, like everything between us. We kissed there in our kitchen, pasta forgotten, world reduced to this moment. When we finally separated, both grinning like idiots, she said, should probably finish dinner before it burns. Probably. Neither of us moved. We told people gradually. My college friends reacted with excitement. They'd known about Olivia for years, understood our history even if they didn't know all the details. Her colleagues at school congratulated her, though a few raised eyebrows at the age gap until they met me, saw how we were together. Some judgment persisted. Probably always would. But it mattered less with each passing year. We'd earned this. Fought for it. Refused to let other people's discomfort dictate our choices. I hadn't spoken to John in 5 years. Hadn't seen him since graduation. Sometimes I wondered if he thought about me, regretted how things ended. Mostly I didn't think about him at all. Healing isn't linear. Some days I woke up fine, ready to tackle whatever came. Other days, sounds would trigger memories, a door slamming, raised voices, the particular creak of floorboards. Those days, Olivia held me through the panic, reminded me where I was, who I'd become. You're safe, she'd whisper. He can't reach you here. You're safe. And eventually, I'd believe her. Therapy helped. I'd started seeing someone my second year of undergrad, finally addressing the trauma I'd been outrunning. Dr. Williams, a kind woman with gentle eyes, helped me understand that surviving didn't mean forgetting, that carrying scars wasn't weakness. Resilience isn't about bouncing back unchanged, she told me once. It's about integrating what happened into who you become. You don't have to erase your past. You just have to stop letting it write your future. I thought about that constantly. Chose to integrate rather than erase. The girl who'd climbed through windows to escape, who'd learned to read danger in breathing patterns, who'd found salvation in a stranger's kindness, she was still part of me. Summer arrived, humid and full of possibility. We started planning the wedding, small ceremony, close friends only. Nothing elaborate. Just commitment spoken aloud, made official. Olivia wanted to invite her parents. I'd met them twice, both occasions awkward as they processed their daughter marrying someone young enough to be their grandchild. But they were trying, which was more than some families managed. "Do you want to invite John?" Olivia asked one evening while we addressed invitations. I looked up surprised. "Why would I?" "I don't know. Closure? Showing him you made it despite everything. I don't need his validation. Don't need him to see my happiness to make it real." "You're right. Sorry. Stupid suggestion." "Not stupid. Just. I spent 17 years seeking his approval, his affection, something that proved I was worth keeping. Took me years to realize I never needed his approval. I only needed my own." She reached across the table, squeezed my hand. "For what it's worth, I'm incredibly proud of who you've become." "I'm pretty proud too, actually." And I was. The girl who'd walked into that bar 5 years ago wouldn't recognize me now. I'd published research, presented at conferences, stood before lecture halls teaching introductory classes. I'd built friendships, learned to trust, discovered that vulnerability wasn't synonymous with weakness. I'd learned to love without fear destroying it. 2 months before the wedding, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Silence on the other end. Then, "Talia." John's voice. Unchanged by years, instantly recognizable. My stomach clenched involuntarily. "How did you get this number?" "I'm still listed as your emergency contact at the university." Called the registrar, said there was a family emergency. "There isn't." "No, there isn't." Pause. "I heard you're getting married." Small towns and their gossip networks. "Yeah, I am." "To your teacher." "That woman." "To Olivia." "My fiancé." Another pause. I wanted to apologize. For how things ended. For how I was. I've been sober now for 3 years, and part of recovery is making amends. "Stop." My voice came out harder than intended. "I'm glad you're sober. Genuinely. But I don't owe you forgiveness just because you've decided to get clean. Your amends are for you, not for me." "Talia, please." "No. You don't get to call after 5 years and expect me to absolve you because it makes your recovery easier. What you did, years of it, that shaped me in ways I'm still unpacking. You want forgiveness? Forgive yourself. But don't put that burden on me." Silence stretched between us. "You're right," he said finally. "I'm sorry. For calling, for everything. I hope you're happy." "I am. Happier than I ever thought possible." "Good. That's good." I hung up. Sat staring at my phone until Olivia found me. "You okay?" John called. Wanted to apologize as part of his recovery. She sat beside me. "How do you feel?" "Honestly? Nothing." I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no longing for reconciliation. Just nothing. Is that terrible? It's honest. You don't owe him emotional labor. Not after everything. He sounded sincere. Like he actually regretted it all. Maybe he does. But his regret doesn't obligate you to anything. You get to process this however you need to. I leaned into her. I think I'm done processing him. Ready to focus on what's ahead instead of what's behind. Then that's what we'll do. The wedding took place in October, 5.5 years after that night in the bar. We exchanged vows under trees ablaze with autumn color, surrounded by people who'd supported us through everything. I wore a simple dress. Olivia wore a suit. We promised each other honesty, growth, unwavering support. We promised to keep choosing each other, even when it got hard. Because relationships aren't actually about grand gestures. They're about showing up consistently. About seeing someone's worst moments and staying anyway. About building something sturdy enough to weather inevitable storms. We'd weathered plenty already. We'd weather more. When we kissed, sealing promises spoken aloud, I felt that same shift from the bar, like someone had cracked open a window in a suffocating room. Except this time, the window stayed open. This time, I could breathe freely without fear of it closing. Years continued unfolding. I finished my master's, started my PhD. Olivia got promoted to department head. We adopted a dog, a rescue mutt named Atlas, who'd been through his own trauma and needed patient, consistent love to heal. "We're good at rescuing broken things," Olivia joked one evening while Atlas slept between us on the couch. Or maybe we're just good at recognizing that broken is subjective. That things can heal if given proper conditions. Philosophy major and you coming out? Biology major, actually. Everything is just applied biology when you think about it. She laughed, kissed my temple. "You're ridiculous, and I love you. Love you too. Even when you steal the blankets." "I don't steal them. I strategically redistribute them." Semantics. Atlas snored between us, content and safe. Outside, the world continued spinning. Inside, we'd built something neither of us had been certain existed: home. Real home. The kind that doesn't require hiding or pretending. The kind where you can be entirely yourself without fear. Looking back now, from the vantage point of contentment, I see clearly what took years to understand. My story wasn't about being saved. Olivia didn't rescue me from my circumstances like some fairy tale princess. Instead, she showed me I could save myself. Held space while I figured out how. Walked beside me while I learned that strength doesn't mean never falling apart. It means putting yourself back together afterward. Again and again. However many times necessary. Some people would hear our story and focus on the controversial aspects. The age gap. The teacher-student beginning. The complications that could have destroyed everything. But those people would miss the essential truth. Sometimes connection transcends conventional boundaries. Sometimes two broken people find each other at exactly the right moment. Sometimes love arrives messy and complicated, and you choose it anyway because the alternative, walking away from genuine understanding, is worse. We chose each other. Keep choosing each other. We'll choose each other tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. Because at the end of everything, past the trauma and healing, past the obstacles and judgment, past all the noise, we're just two people who saw each other clearly and decided that was enough. More than enough. Everything. 10 years after that night in the bar, I published my first book. Academic text on cellular resilience, how organisms adapt to extreme stress, how they survive seemingly impossible conditions, how they emerge transformed but functional. The dedication read, "For Olivia, who taught me that surviving is just the beginning." She cried when she read it. Happy tears this time, the kind that well up when joy becomes too big to contain. We'd moved by then, left the small town for a city where we could exist without constant scrutiny. I taught at the university. She'd transitioned to curriculum development, still shaping education but from behind the scenes. Some days were harder than others. Trauma doesn't have an expiration date. But we'd learned to navigate the difficult days together. Learned that healing isn't linear, that setbacks don't erase progress. And increasingly, the good days outnumbered the bad ones. I'm 29 now. Olivia is 42. The age gap that once seemed insurmountable barely registers anymore. We're just partners, building a life from scratch, writing our story one day at a time. Sometimes students ask me how I got interested in resilience research. I tell them about discovering cellular biology in high school, about a teacher who showed me how fascinating science could be. I don't mention the rest, the personal reasons behind my academic interests. Some stories are private. But I carry those experiences with me always. Let them inform how I teach, how I interact with struggling students, how I recognize when someone needs support rather than judgment. I see the kids who show up exhausted, wearing long sleeves in summer, flinching at sudden movements. I recognize them because I was them. And while I can't save them, can't do for them what they need to do for themselves, I can show them it's possible. That escape exists. That the future they can't imagine is waiting if they can just survive long enough to reach it. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes it's everything. On our 10th anniversary, we returned to the overlook by Miller's Pond. Parked in the same spot where we'd first decided to stop running from what we were becoming. Snow fell just like that first night. The pond below had frozen solid. You think younger us would believe this? I asked. That we actually made it? Younger me? Probably not. I was terrified of everything back then. She took my hand. Younger you. I considered. That desperate 17-year-old who'd stumbled into a bar seeking oblivion. Who'd found something else instead. Maybe, I said. I think even then, some part of me believed things could get better. Had to believe it, or I wouldn't have kept going. I'm glad you kept going. Me too. We sat in comfortable silence, watching snow accumulate. The car was warm, safe, ours. Outside, the world was cold and often cruel. But inside, we'd created something that defied the odds. Thank you, I said eventually. For what? For seeing me. For staying. For showing me that happy endings aren't fiction, they're just hard-won. She squeezed my hand. Thank you for letting me. For trusting me enough to stay even when I was scared. For being patient while I figured out how to be brave. We were both pretty brave, actually. Yeah, we were. More silence. Comfortable, warm, full of everything we'd built together. Ready to head home? She asked. Home. Such a simple word. Such a complicated concept for so long. Yeah, let's go home. We drove back through snow-quiet streets, returned to our apartment, to Atlas waiting by the door, to the life we'd constructed from ruins and refusal to quit. That night, curled up together while wind howled outside, I thought about 17-year-old Talia. About what I'd tell her if I could reach back through time. I'd tell her to hold on. That the pain isn't permanent. That she's stronger than she knows, braver than she believes, more deserving of happiness than she can currently imagine. I'd tell her about the woman she'll meet. About how terrifying and wonderful it will be. About how love shows up sometimes in the most unexpected packages, at the most unlikely moments. I'd tell her about today. About waking up safe, choosing to stay, building something beautiful from broken pieces. I'd tell her, you survive. And survival is just the beginning. But I can't reach back. Can't change what happened or make it easier. Can only be grateful for where those experiences led me, for the person they helped me become. So instead, I hold Olivia closer. Feel her breathing beside me, steady and sure. Let myself sink into this moment, this present where I'm no longer running, no longer hiding, no longer just surviving. I'm living. Finally, truly living. And it's more than I ever dared to hope for.